Well, we're almost through the Advent season. That means Christmas is just around the corner. And so we continue our spiritual preparation for the coming of Christ and get ready for those material things that we need to do or want to do, buying presents, getting together with families, making special foods, whatever it may be. It's a time of joy for many people, but for some, it's a time of sadness or brokenness. You know, when we've lost somebody through death, either recently or even long ago, it can still leave an emptiness within us. How do we deal with that emptiness ourselves, and how do we help other people who feel broken or empty or alone or sad? One of the very basic things is simply to be present to them. Sometimes there's nothing you can say. You just be present to them. I think of a prayer by B. Jarrett. He was a Dominican priest, and he has this beautiful prayer that begins with the words about our beloved dead. We give them back to you, O Lord, who first gave them to us. And as you, Lord, did not lose them by giving them to us, so we don't lose them when we give them back to you. I find those very comforting words. Hey, you know, there's a priest in Buffalo. His name is Father Fred Betti. He's a Jesuit, St. Michael's downtown parish. And he found a way of dealing with brokenness by actually fixing things that are broken. Why don't we take a look at his story?
From the time I was in high school, I enjoyed, just as a hobby, doing artwork, and then that kind of translated into a kind of a particular hobby and a craft, which was I became interested in restoring religious statuary. So about 18, 19 years ago, a good friend of mine, Anne Marie Zahn, who's a Nicaraguan missionary, her mom and dad, who take donations for Nicaragua, they got these boxes of these broken, damaged nativity statues. Mrs. Zahn, who's a riot, God love her soul, she's with God in heaven now, she called my mom, two moms, and she said, we have all these broken statues, and we don't know anybody who can do anything with them except your son, because we know he fixes statues. Do you want them? Being a good mom, my mom said, sure, we'll take them. So loaded up the car with all these nativity figurines that were cracked, damaged, smashed, broken, and that began the challenge of starting to build a new nativity scene. My dad, who is not trained in this, just is a very crafty handyman, he kind of became my accomplice, my associate. A lot of plaster restoration, a lot of rebuilding. Some of the statues take up to a year to completely restore, rebuild, and then finally, for me, which is the fun part, is the painting. My favorite piece is the little shepherd boy who kneels in front of the manger with his little lamb in his arms. I just find him a precious little piece. Again, very badly damaged, quite broken and cracked, but again, it was a joy to rebuild him and then to repaint him. What I love about him, as I tell people, is he has that beautiful face of wonder, that sense of awe and wonder, and I think that's what we're all called to experience when we come to the manger to see the Christ child, you know, that sense of joy, that sense of awe. We all need that, and he kind of reminds me of that childlike joy that we all need when we come to the manger. The other piece that probably is the most famous piece in our creche is the African king, and that's a unique story. It's one of those stories where you say maybe God's giving us a message here, but like most of the pieces, we had acquired him with other kings. He was chipped, he was damaged, had some holes in him, some water damage. So again, my dad, who's very handy, in our little workshop in our basement, was repairing him, and somehow lost his hold, and the entire statue crashed on the basement floor, concrete floor. So we wound up with just a massive amount of plaster chips, everything smashed all over the floor. My dad was very upset. I told him, let's not worry, we'll always get another African king somewhere. But he said, no, we're going to do it. And it took him about 9 to 10 months, but he literally put all the plaster pieces in different boxes, named them all, with wire and mesh and very meticulous work, completely rebuilt that king. So he's a beautiful figurine, and so he's kind of a symbol of what we've done, you know, in the greatest sense. For me, very much like a lot of people who use art, religious art, prayer is very important. And kind of praying about what I'm doing is a very important thing too, you know, and then kind of using prayer as a way to get into the character of the figurine I'm painting, you know, whether it's a shepherd, whether it's a king, whether it's someone else that's part of the nativity scene, you know. So for me, yes, it's a very prayerful experience. And then also setting up the manger every year is a prayerful experience for me. You know, it takes a couple of days, maybe 4 to 5 days to create everything here. And I find it almost like a time of retreat, where I can kind of go back in prayer and spiritual reflection on what am I doing, you know, and getting into the whole scene. And so what was happening when Christ was being born? How do I see it? You know, what do I envision was going on at that time? Christ is not just born once in Bethlehem, but Christ is born each and every year into our lives, into where you live, into your environment, into your community. You know, if Christ was being born today in West New York, well, yeah, maybe the shepherds, like many of us who go out to camp or do things in Western New York. You know, I'm sure the shepherds had their little fire pit, you know, and they had all their utensils and they had to have their food and all. And so they're kind of settling in to spend some time with Mary and Joseph. So the fire pit, people gather, they kind of gather around a fire. So I think that's important. Not only is it the light of Christ, but it's just a gathering of people, you know. The fountain, you know, and the pond with the turtles, the fish in it, the ducks, the geese, again, to me, that's just part of the nature that Christ was born into, you know. In Advent, then when I start to unpack everything, literally, when I open a box, take away all the bubble wrap and see that figurine, especially as the face comes out, you know, it's almost like reconnecting with someone you know. It's like a relationship, you know, kind of reignited for the holidays. So it's a really beautiful thing. And many years ago, as we were rebuilding some of the figurines, especially the ones that were so badly chipped, damaged, heads off, arms off, noses broken, and all of that. You know, I was really thinking about, you know, what do we celebrate when we celebrate the birth of Christ? What does it really mean to us as a Christian people, and what does Christ mean to us? God looked at all of humanity, you know, and God saw a world that was broken, and cracked, and damaged by sin, you know, and God saw a world that was so almost like, you know, ready for the garbage heap itself, you know, and God the Trinity says, let us send the second person of the Trinity to work the salvation of the human race. And that's that beautiful message of mercy, that beautiful compassion and unconditional love of God. So that's what Jesus did, you know, by being born of Mary, by being born as a human, you know. He began that process, God began that process of rebuilding us, restoring us, you know, taking our broken, shattered, kind of just, you know, messed up lives, worthless lives, really, kind of like these broken figurines. And then through his birth, you know, through his death, his resurrection, totally restoring, rebuilding, and recreating us as a human race.
Welcome back to our Daily Bread. You know, sometimes when we talk about brokenness and being broken apart, one of the things that really draws us together is family and, of course, food. And as we're in Advent and preparing for Christmas, this is the time we might think of what we might serve a little bit differently when family comes over. And we got a great chef with us today, Chef Fernando Desa.
How are you?
Good, very good, Chef. It's great to have you here, because sometimes people say that I'm a chef, and I know I'm not a chef. I don't even cook. I cook okay, but you are the real deal. You are the chef here, and you're the chef for GOYA. Now, GOYA is a pretty big company here in Western New York, too. I know I passed their place in Angola a lot of times,
right.
But also there's a big Hispanic community here in Western New York, too, and I think we're a lot richer because of the varieties of food that we have. And today you're going to make a couple of things that are healthy. You're going to mix what flavors?
We're going to mix a little bit of Peruvian, Mexican, and Ecuadorian.
Is that usual to mix those different cultures together? Is that something you come up with or what?
Not really, but it really works.
Great.
So if it works and have a lot of flavor, it's good.
Okay, so we've got the quinoa.
So we're gonna start with the quinoa. This is a 3-color quinoa organic that we have: red, black, and white. We cook that with a little bit of GOYA chicken bouillon. All right.
Okay.
10,
or
15,
chicken stock if you want.
Chicken stock. 10-15 minutes. And that's ready. After that, lemon juice.
Okay.
Okay. So it's a nice salad. Some fresh diced tomatoes. Okay. Then we have a mixture of jalapenos and pimientos and yellow peppers. Okay.
Is that very spicy?
It's just a tiny spicy, not much. Little scallions here. So a nice color. You can see it's a nice color.
Beautiful.
Then after that, to give some extra flavor, some sazonador total. I call it like my sofrito.
Okay.
Mixture of spices and vegetables in one can.
Okay.
One jar. Okay.
So you're not going too heavy on that. That's got a lot of flavor in it,
It's plenty of flavor. Have enough salt, not too salty. And then to mix everything up, I always use my extra virgin olive oil. It marinates everything. It just bring all the flavors together. Okay. So here you go.
Beautiful. Is that it? Now what's next?
Now we're gonna do the Ecuadorian ceviche.
Now when I think ceviche, right away I think, oh, it's raw. It's cooked in citrus acid, and so, you know, some people are a little squeamish about this, but this is not like that. This is a cooked
The Ecuadorian ceviche you do is you actually pre-cook the shrimp till nice and pink.
All right.
So in this case, Ecuadorian ceviche, you start with some tomato sauce.
Okay.
Okay. Very good flavor. Sour orange. Then some ketchup, just for the sweetness, GOYA ketchup. After that, some Dijon mustard.
Okay.
So nice creaminess and texture to the ceviche. Okay, you mix it in. After that, some Worcestershire sauce.
Good.
Okay, then after that, a little bit of lemon juice.
Now it's interesting. You put bitter, or is it bitter?
Bitter orange.
Bitter orange, and that's another product you have.
We have that, yeah.
Is that a newer product? I've never seen that or heard of that actually myself, but I'm sure people who are in the know would know.
We had that for a long time. Actually, the Cuban population used it a lot to marinate pork. Also the Puerto Ricans too. And we marinate the pork there, and then we cook it in the oven and just add this flavor to the pork, unique flavor that is really good in the dish. Okay? So after this, we have everything ready. We put a little bit of fresh cilantro.
Oh, nice.
Okay, it's nice freshness to it. And then finish it up with the shrimp.
Okay, which are already cooked and already cleaned and everything else. Yep.
To top it up, you can do anything without adobo. GOYA adobo.
Adobo is a big, that's like used in everything.
Everything. You put adobo in everything.
Right, okay.
So finish it up.
I notice you're very light-handed. You only put a little of this, a little of that.
It's enough flavors here. It's enough flavors. All these ingredients have a lot of flavors. So you just put a little bit of adobo to top it up, and you just give it a different taste to it. So there you go. This is ceviche already made.
That's all set now?
That's good.
Now, you tell me that you're from the west coast of Puerto Rico originally.
Right.
And you live now in New Jersey.
In New Jersey, yes.
What a big change, huh?
Big change. Yeah, you know, it's cold, but I got used to it. You know, I came from Puerto Rico to Providence, Providence to West Virginia to Boston, Boston to New Jersey. So
I see.
Learning a little bit from everybody.
Now you got 3 children. You told me.
That's true.
Yeah. Tell us about them a little bit.
We have, you know, I have 11.
What's your wife's first name?
My wife, Claudia.
Claudia. Okay.
Claudia, and then my oldest son is Gustavo. Then he's 11 years old. They have Gabriela, 2 years old, and they have Juliana, which is 5 months old.
Oh, how beautiful! Oh,
so
5
very
months.
Good, beautiful family.
Yeah. Now, what's the tradition you might have for the Christmas dinner or for Christmas time?
Well, growing up in Puerto Rico, we always spend the Christmas with the family. A roasted pork using our mojo or naranja agria, nice and roasted with rice and pigeon peas.
Pigeon peas. We made those on one of our shows. Yeah.
Rice
That's a big holiday
big time
recipe.
A Puerto Rican table without pigeon peas, rice, it's not a table.
Okay.
A little yuca mojo. So it's boiled yuca, and then you make a mojo, like a sauce around. It's really good, you know, tostones, and then you have flans, and then you have coquito, which is like an eggnog. And you know, maduros, a little bit of everything. Morcilla, blood sausage, pasteles. You can mix a pasteles, you know, like a tamal, Puerto Rican tamal with plantain, ground beef. Just a little bit of everything, and you know, growing up, spending time with the family, what a better time to spend, you know, the Christmas time with family and good food.
Exactly. Wow, you're getting me hungry now here. All right, now we got our, what is this?
There you go. Now we're gonna make a crema. Now crema traditionally is made in Mexican food to top it up on a taco. Now in this case, I'm gonna make it with a little bit of sour cream. Okay. Then we're gonna add some chipotle sauce.
Oh, chipotle sauce.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's nice and smoky.
I like that. Yeah, I've had that a number of times. Yeah.
Nice and smoky. So if some flavor to it and a nice color also. Then after that, to give some flavor, some GOYA sazon.
Now, what's sazon?
Sazon is a mixture of spices that just is a flavor booster. We put this in soups, sauces, rices. Actually, I put it in everything. And sauces and ceviches, everything else. So we do that.
Oh, it smells great.
And very easy, very light. You just have another dimension of flavor into the food. Okay, so here you go. And this is it.
Time to plate, chef.
There you go.
So we got our beautiful quinoa.
It's our quinoa. Nice color.
Great. Now, before a meal, you pray with your family, and what do you usually pray?
We always pray the Our Father.
In Spanish? Or?
In Spanish,
Okay.
yes.
Shall we eat?
There you go.
Okay.
Your Father first.
Beautiful, thank you. Oh, I'm going to try this quinoa with a little crema first.
It's a little bit spicy, but it's not really much.
It's not, it's a little spicy, the little after kick, but not, you know, I can't eat real spice, but I love this. This is very good.
Very good, right? Nice and refreshing.
Oh, beautiful.
Nice creaminess.
I love the crema.
It's good.
Oh, boy. That's good. Thanks to Chef Fernando.
Thank you.
Thanks to GOYA. And have a great Christmas with your family.
Same to you.
What a beautiful thing. And we'll be back with more right after this on Our Daily Bread. Welcome back to Our Daily Bread. That GOYA food looked great. And I love to try a little something different, and I think that's a nice idea, especially for the holidays, even though we really have our own traditions in our family. So I'm gonna make a cake today that was made when I was a little boy by my Aunt Lottie, my great Aunt Lottie. Now, she was my great aunt. My grandfather, her brother was Edgar Seil, and they had a brother Endymion and a brother Morand. These were unusual names. You know, but it turns out that while I was told as a kid we were of German ancestry as well as Irish, I found out later we were really Alsatian. Now, Aunt Lottie used to make a potato cake I'm not talking about, you know, the fried potato cakes with sour cream that you eat. I'm talking about a dessert, a potato cake. And we always thought it was a little bit unusual as kids, but it was also a lot of fun. So I was looking all over for a recipe for a German dessert or Alsatian dessert potato cake, and it's hard to find, but I cobbled one together. I've tried it, I made it. You know, I'm not a baker, but I think this is pretty easy, and it kind of replicates the one that I remember as a kid. So first of all, you're going to boil a couple of potatoes, either a large, 2 mediums, or a few small. You want about a cup of potatoes, and I'm going to rice the potatoes in a potato ricer to get a cup. I'm also going to start, I'm going to boil a little bit, while I'm boiling the potatoes, I'm going to boil some lemon rind. Now, I want to put this is going to go in a separate pan with about a cup of water, a few tablespoons of sugar, and we're going to use that a little bit later. We're going to simmer that for about 15 minutes. We're going to start with a cup of butter. That would be 2 sticks. And let me start this. And then gradually add 2 cups of brown sugar packed down. So you want that. And you're going to mix that until it creams together. And that'll take just a couple of minutes. Now, while that's going on, I'm going to get my potatoes ready here. So I got some right here that I have riced already. And that should be enough. Okay, now we're going to put 4 eggs into the sugar and the softened butter, one at a time. And let it start to get a little bit incorporated in as we go through this. Now we're going to put in our approximately 1 cup of potatoes, riced or mashed. And you just want to incorporate all of these into our wet mixture here. That looks pretty good. I'm going to turn that off for a few moments. Now we have our dry ingredients, which include 2½ cups of all-purpose flour, okay? About 2½ teaspoons of baking powder. I like to use the one without aluminum in it because you don't need any extra aluminum to make it good baking powder. That's about 2½ teaspoons. And let's see, I'm going to use just a dash of salt to bring out some of these flavors. A little cinnamon, about a teaspoon, or if you like a little more, maybe a teaspoon and a half or so. There we go. Then we've got some allspice. Allspice is pretty powerful, so a little less than a teaspoon of this. Some cloves ground up will give it a nice spicy flavor too, but that's powerful stuff, so about a half a teaspoon of that. And let's see, oh, I'd like to put in a little bit of ginger too. Gives you that kind of Germanic kind of flavor, you know, like ginger snaps. And finally, we've got some fresh nutmeg, which I'm going to grate. You know, a little nutmeg goes kind of a long way. Now, the recipe here calls for a teaspoon. I think that's a little bit much, but I'm going to go a little bit lower than that. I'm going to give those a quick mix to just get all of the flavors kind of, you know, incorporated there. Now let me put my little, I'm not good with these blenders and mixers and things, so I want to use every advantage I can to help me from making a mess. So in will go the dry ingredients in portions with 1 cup of milk, and I'm going to put in a little dry, a little milk, a little dry, a little milk, and I'm going to end and begin with the dry ingredients. It's about 1 cup of milk. I use whole milk because, well, let's face it, we're not skimping on this dessert. This would not be something I would normally eat, but for the sake of the family and of memories, I want to try it. A little more milk here. That's my cup of milk. End up with the flour. Now remember our friends the lemons? Well, I cook them in a cup of water and a few tablespoons of sugar. And be careful because I burned one this morning. I wasn't watching it, and that's a big mess, I'll tell you. When you get burned sugar, that's a mess. Anyway, so here we go. I'm just going to cut these into little tiny, tiny strips, and those are going to add a nice extra flavor to our cake. And you might, if you want more lemon, you can do that. You can just zest a lemon over the mixture if you'd like. So I've got my little lemons there. We'll get the lemon in here. Wait a minute. And then I've got pecans. You don't have to, you could put in walnuts, you could put in pecans. You don't have to put any nuts in if you don't want to use nuts. But it is nice to have some kind of a nut and a fruit, especially around the holidays. That's kind of traditional. And I've got some seedless raisins. Well, these raisins are from Thompson's Seedless Grapes. You can actually get seedless raisins, you know. So, now, this goes into our pans, and then it's going to go into an oven of 350 degrees for, it could take up to an hour, but I'm going to say mine, I did some other ones the other day, and they were done in about 45 minutes. So you got to check them. And let's see here. Okay. So I am going to spread this a little bit around the pan just to even it out. And then in the oven they go at 350 degrees. Check them after at least, you know, like a half an hour. Make sure they're not getting too toasty. You want to put them on a middle rack, and oh, they're going to be beautiful, I'll tell you. They're real dense. They're very heavy. But if you want to make this and bring it as a gift, it's a wonderful little house gift for the holiday. So that's my version of my great Aunt Lottie's German potato dessert cake that she would make every year around Christmas. Now, you got 2 beautiful cakes here, 2 layers. You could serve them individually with a little powdered sugar over them. I'm putting a little jam in the center, because you know you always get weird little jams from people, don't you? And there's a place for them. Apricot jam would be good. This is Marionberry jam. I never heard of that, but some friends sent me that from Oregon. So, and then on the top, I'm going to do a little of the very traditional and easy buttercream icing. And this is, well, it's nothing but sugar and butter and milk. You know, sometimes when we remember our family from the past and old kind of traditions, it helps us get through some of the brokenness of our lives. You know, our loved ones who've gone before us are always part of our life, and that's really a beautiful thing to remember during this Advent and during the Christmas season. I hope you learned a little bit today about some of my traditions, but also the Hispanic traditions and facing brokenness in a way that kind of helps us be people who still have hope, because that's what the Christ child's all about. The birth of Jesus is all about the birth of hope on earth. And to wrap up our program today, I'm glad to introduce Bishop Richard Malone.
Christmas is coming, the goose is getting fat. Please put a penny in the old man's hat. That may sound a little crazy, but my sister and I, around Christmas, would always start singing that song around the house. And then we would laugh and laugh after we did it, and then do it again. But a Merry Christmas to all of you, and my prayer for you as we celebrate this Christmas and move into the new year 2017 is that you will have a heart that is touched by God's love in wonderful new ways, and that you will know and share the joy of the gospel. Our world needs that from you and me. Merry Christmas.